Most people picture towing as a flatbed truck in a parking lot. Routine, boring, forgettable. Nobody watches a tow truck driver and thinks this could be a phenomenon. Nobody except Matt Wetzel, a high school-educated tow truck driver from Hurricane, Utah, a town most people couldn't find on a map, propped his iPhone against a rock, hit record, and changed what the world thought towing could look like. No studio, no script, no camera crew, just a big bearded guy, a beat-up yellow Jeep, and a genuine passion for pulling people out of situations they probably shouldn't have gotten into. Since March 2019, that iPhone footage has racked up over 1.1 billion views. So how did a small-town recovery operator go from dragging cable through desert sand to building one of the most watched automotive channels on the planet? The answer is simpler and wilder than you'd expect. Before Matt Wetzel ever pointed a camera at a stuck Jeep, he spent 12 years on rooftops, a decade as an employee, then 2 years as co-owner of Skyline Roofing, a company he helped build from the ground up in Hurricane, Utah. It wasn't glamorous work, but it taught him something that would define everything that came after: how to solve problems fast, with whatever you've got in front of you. When he walked away from roofing, he didn't exactly walk into a master plan. In 2009, he bought a shop and the assets of a struggling towing operation and founded Red Ryder Towing. He had never towed professionally before. What he had was grit, a mechanical instinct sharpened by years of heavy labor, and a willingness to figure it out on the fly. He'd describe it himself. He stepped into the towing industry going full speed. Then the off-road calls started coming in. Tourists stuck in sand, rentals buried in mud, people who had no business driving into the Utah backcountry doing exactly that. Matt didn't have the right equipment. He went anyway. By his own admission, the early recoveries were a mess. Wrong tools, wrong methods, wrong everything. But he kept showing up. By 2013, he made a move that said everything about how his mind works. Instead of spending years slowly building a reputation from scratch, he bought one. Winder Towing had been operating in Hurricane since 1981. Over 30 years of trust, history, and name recognition in the community. Matt acquired it, took the wheel, and started thinking bigger. He just didn't know how much bigger yet. The calls kept coming, and the problem kept getting worse. It was one thing to tow a broken-down sedan off a highway. That's a formula. You show up, you hook up, you go. Off-road recovery was something else entirely. Picture August in southern Utah, 110 degrees. Two college kids have driven their rental car into Sand Hollow and buried it to the axles. Matt arrives with a wrecker and cable extensions. His guy has to drag 150 feet of steel cable through deep sand, walk back, grab another extension, walk out again, hook it up, and repeat the whole process just to reach the stuck vehicle. By the time the job is done, everyone is exhausted, the customer is miserable, and Matt knows this system is completely broken. He started experimenting, pushing the equipment harder, trying different angles. Nothing clicked. Off-road recovery as an industry hadn't really evolved. Most operators were just applying highway towing logic to terrain it was never designed for. Then a friend introduced him to kinetic energy ropes. It sounds simple. It wasn't. A kinetic rope isn't rigid like a chain or static like a standard strap. It stretches under load, stores energy, and releases it in one controlled burst, like a slingshot. One vehicle pulls, the rope loads up, and when it fires, the stuck vehicle comes out cleaner and safer than any cable drag ever managed. Matt credits that single conversation as the moment off-road recovery stopped being a headache and started being a business. He didn't invent the technology. What he did was master it, refine it, and eventually show it to over 2 million people. That part came later. March 28, 2019. Matt Wetzel created a YouTube account, uploaded his first video, and titled it exactly what it was: the first recovery video ever. No intro music, no graphics, no production value to speak of. He was filming himself with an iPhone, handing it to Ed or one of his kids when they got to the job site, or propping it against whatever rock or stick would hold it steady. The whole operation looked like it had no business becoming anything. Within 6 to 8 months, a video crossed 1 million views. What Matt figured out early and faster than most was that making videos and making good videos take roughly the same amount of work. So he started asking a different question. Not what makes a good video, but why did this one perform and that one didn't? He studied his own footage the way a coach studies game tape, and what emerged was a formula so clean it almost sounds obvious in hindsight. Every video opens with the call, a stranded motorist, a location, a situation that sounds impossible. Then the journey, fast motion footage of the crew rolling out across some of the most visually stunning landscape in America, dogs running alongside the rigs, music driving the pace. Then the rescue itself, the diagnosis, the problem-solving, the pull. 3 acts, every time. Viewers always knew the structure, and they came back anyway because the variables inside that structure were never the same twice. He wasn't making content, he was building a show, and the audience responded like it was the best thing on television, because for a lot of them, it genuinely was. The recoveries were impressive, but recoveries alone don't build a following of 2 million people. What kept viewers coming back wasn't the equipment or even the terrain. It was the people standing next to the equipment. Ed Robin wasn't recruited. He wasn't auditioned. When Matt bought the garage property that became the base of operations for Winder Towing, Ed was already there. He'd been living on the property, and Matt couldn't exactly put him out on the street, so he offered him a job instead. What started as a practical arrangement turned into one of the most beloved dynamics in automotive YouTube history. Ed was sharp, knowledgeable, relentlessly positive, and completely unbothered by the camera. Viewers assumed he was Matt's father. He wasn't, but the relationship looked close enough that it didn't matter. People don't tune into a YouTube channel twice a week because the winch technique is interesting. They tune in because they care about the people doing the winching. Jamie kept the entire operation running from the back end, handling billing, logistics, and whatever else needed doing, often while also operating a camera or driving a recovery vehicle. Rudy, Matt's eldest son, handled fabrication and trail driving until striking out on his own in April 2022. Lizzie brought mechanical skill and an energy that resonated with younger viewers. Each addition to the crew expanded the show's emotional footprint without ever feeling manufactured. Then in October 2021, Ed passed away. The response from the fanbase was immediate and genuine. Thousands of comments, tributes, and messages from people who had never met him but felt like they had. That kind of grief doesn't happen over a YouTube channel. It happens over a relationship. Matt had built both. By late 2021, Matt's Off-Road Recovery was one of the fastest-growing automotive channels on YouTube. The subscriber count was climbing, the videos were pulling millions of views, and Matt Wetzel had become the most recognizable face in off-road recovery. Then the charging documents dropped. In November 2021, it emerged that Matt had been charged with a second-degree felony for defrauding AAA, the roadside assistance giant that Winder Towing was affiliated with. The allegations were specific. Investigators claimed Matt had billed AAA for jobs that didn't match what was actually performed, including a recovery of a Polaris RZR, a vehicle not covered under AAA, where the claim reportedly described a truck instead. Other instances involved customers without valid memberships being told to sign up after the fact and submit claims as if the coverage had been in place all along. The total alleged, just over $15,000. For a channel built on the image of a straight-talking, salt-of-the-earth operator who treated every stranded motorist with honesty and respect, the optics were rough. Fans were rattled. Critics circled. Some predicted it would sink the whole operation. It didn't. Matt admitted guilt, paid full restitution, and accepted probation. The DA stated publicly that justice had been served. Matt kept uploading. The audience kept watching. If anything, the way he absorbed the hit, without drama, without deflection, without disappearing, reinforced the same blue-collar resilience that had made the channel worth watching in the first place. Not every story about changing an industry is clean. Sometimes the most revealing moment isn't the highlight reel. It's what happens when the camera turns around and points back at you. Something quietly significant had been happening while everyone was watching the drama unfold. Across the country, other towing operators were watching Matt's channel, not just for entertainment, but for a blueprint. If a high school-educated tow truck driver from a small Utah town could build a business generating over 1 billion views with an iPhone and a 3-part formula, the question wasn't whether it could be done. The question was why nobody had done it sooner. The channels that followed tell the story. Fab Rats, Trailmater, Casey's Off-Road Recovery, an entire genre of recovery content grew up in the wake of what Matt had built. Creators openly cited Matt's Off-Road Recovery as the model they studied, the proof of concept that made them believe the niche had an audience worth chasing. The format he had essentially standardized, The call, the journey, the rescue became the genre's default structure, the same way every cooking show eventually organizes itself around the same beats. The equipment shift was just as significant. Before Matt's channel introduced kinetic rope recovery to millions of casual off-roaders, most people hadn't heard of it. Now it's standard conversation in Jeep forums, overlanding communities, and 4x4 Facebook groups worldwide. His co-developed rope with Yankum ropes got independently tested and reviewed by channels with their own massive audiences. A product born from a towing company in Hurricane, Utah, competing on shelves against established outdoor gear brands. Perhaps the most understated impact is this. Towing companies across America now run YouTube channels. They film recoveries, they build audiences, they treat content as part of the business model. Most of them are following a path that Matt Wetzel paved, whether they know it or not. It's worth stepping back and looking at what actually happened here, because it's easy to let the subscriber counts and the billion views blur the real picture. Matt Wetzel didn't walk into a media company with a development deal and a content strategy. He walked into a broken system, off-road recovery jobs being done with the wrong equipment, in the wrong way with no one watching, and he fixed it one piece at a time. The kinetic rope, the formula, the crew, the camera propped against a rock. None of it was designed. All of it worked. The towing industry had existed for over a century before anyone made it genuinely watchable. That's not an accident of timing or technology. Smartphones existed long before 2019. What was missing was someone willing to treat a recovery job as a story worth telling and an audience worth respecting. Matt provided both. What he built extends beyond view counts and merchandise deals. He shifted how an entire profession sees itself. Operators who spent decades doing invisible work in thankless conditions suddenly had a template for making that work visible and valuable. The off-road recovery niche went from a footnote in the automotive world to a genre with its own stars, its own vocabulary, and its own dedicated audience of millions. And at the center of all of it is still the same guy. Big beard, yellow Jeep, iPhone pointed at something impossible in the Utah desert. The tools got better, the crew got bigger, the numbers got harder to comprehend, but the approach never changed. Show up, solve the problem, bring people along for the ride. Turns out that's all it ever takes. Matt Wetzel set out to run a towing company. What he ended up building was something nobody had a name for yet. A one-man media operation that turned a niche profession into appointment viewing for over 2 million people. He didn't disrupt the towing industry from a boardroom or a business school. He did it from a desert canyon with a phone and a kinetic rope. The blueprint he created, authentic storytelling, consistent format, real people in real situations, didn't just change how recovery content gets made. It changed what blue-collar YouTube looks like altogether. And that's not something you can tow back.